Chairperson, you're free to proceed.
Good morning, everyone. It's 16 November. It's 10:30 a.m. or 10:29 a.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's begin with a roll call. I think everybody. Allison, have you made it yet? No. Okay. Let's begin with a roll call. Frank Cole.
Present.
Guy Abernathy.
Present.
Honey Fisher.
Present.
Brian Hancock.
Present.
Gary Glass.
Here.
Jimmy Horty.
Present.
Steve Kersen.
Here.
Allison, are you here yet? Okay, I find Allison is not here right now. And Max, do we have anyone on the phone?
I can text her.
Was that a no one?
I can text her right now.
Who's here on phone?
Another one.
No one. I'm getting a cutout of Max's conversation. I'll assume that we're clear. I don't see Kevin or Sharon online, so we should be good to go. The first thing let's do is approve the minutes that were circulated. Do I hear any corrections? Guy has contacted me with the correction which we've made. And are there any other corrections that we need to correct on either the October 19th or the meeting that was held on the 3rd of February?
Yes, Jay. The October, this is Honey, the October 19th meeting, it made a reference that Brian said there was 5G technology on the roof of the Henlopen Hotel and condominium. And I don't recall that part of the discussion, because I would have said that's not correct.
I think we said, oh, I'm sorry.
I know for a fact there is not a 5G antenna on top of the condominium.
Yeah.
Condominium hotel are totally separate entities. I can't speak to the hotel.
Okay. And
that was in the October 19th minutes. It said Brian mentioned that there was 5G at Star to Sea, which I'm sure is true, but it went on to say as well as the Henlopen condominium and hotel, and I just want to point that's not correct.
Are you sure that there are no 5G antennas up there? You check.
Not on top of the condominium for sure.
I'm sorry. I scratched out the condominium on the issue that's going forward, but I did not scratch out the. No, I didn't either.
Okay.
Condominium should, it's not on the condo.
I know for a fact.
I don't think you guys have any antennas. Is that correct?
We do not. We were approached by Verizon a long time ago, and because of damage to the roof, we said absolutely no. So I know we do not have one.
Okay.
On the condominium. I don't know about the hotel. I could find out.
Those look like 5G antennas to me, but they may not be. I looked again yesterday, 3 days ago, and it looked like they had 5G. They may not. It'd be nice to know.
They do have a Verizon antenna up there. They do, but I don't know if it's 5G.
Yeah, they have an array of antennas on the hotel, on the south side of that building, whether it be the hotel or condominium roof space. There's a whole array of antennas.
Yeah, I just looked at those, and it looked like some of those small cylinders were indeed 5G antennas. They may not be though, but they sure look.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
I can find that out, but as far as the minutes, I remember we did not talk about that at the meeting.
Okay.
I don't believe we did. I would have zoned out.
Okay. Oh, okay. I think we did say that, but it is incorrect.
Okay. I don't know how I kept silent through that, because I do know because my husband's on the board at the
Okay.
condominium. I do know there are none.
Okay, instead of going back and re-listening to all that again, let me just
Mhm.
let me just delete that because it's incorrect even if I did say that.
It was me that said it, Jay, and I stand corrected if it's not actually on the condominium, but that there is a whole communication array of antennas on the south side of
Yeah.
that building that makes up the condominium/hotel.
Yeah, and I'm scratching out condominium because Sonny, when Honey mentioned that to me, I went and checked, and it indeed looks like they're on the hotel.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, but it looked like there were 5G up there, but I may be
Yeah.
wrong too. So let me send forward what I know is true, which is Star of the Sea and the Henlopen Hotel.
I have a little bit of trouble hearing Brian. It seems like it's awfully loud. I don't know. Maybe I missed it last time. His speaker's
Okay.
a lot loud again. Maybe I missed it last time.
Okay. Other than that, are we okay on the 19th? And that'll be an easy correction. And are we okay on the 3rd?
I wasn't there.
Guy, I made the correction that you suggested.
Thank you.
And were there any others?
No.
Okay, and Brian, the copy you have is corrected. So that was good to go. And
Yes.
I'll follow up with the 19th, and I'll scratch out the condominium.
And I did confirm that, and there is no antenna on the condominium.
No, and I scratched that out.
Part of it. Yeah, no part of it. Right.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
I move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got that cleared, and I think we're one of the few committees that are keeping up with our minutes, which is terrible if you get behind. When Stan wrote the minutes, they were like books, and so
yeah,
I want to keep track. I want to keep up. Did everybody? Well, let's go ahead and there's no correspondence in the old business that we have. It's always good to review our mission and the goals and objectives that we have, and we're working at the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners. We are advisory in nature, and we try to keep this place safe, clean, friendly, and we pay attention to aesthetics. And something and we do no harm by all means. What does that mean, do no harm? It have any of you ever, I said last night thinking, what do we mean by do no harm?
I think in particular, we were talking about do no harm to the boardwalk. Don't
we are.
deface it in any way, and don't do any damage to the aesthetics of the town.
Yeah. Anything else? Can you think of anything else?
I think it also means if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You betcha. And there are some other things that happen that can happen that I think
you've got mail.
Say again.
Sorry.
I think we're the appointed watchdogs as much as anything, and there are a lot of things that can happen that will do harm, and we're working on Stan Mills's biggest worry, which is commercialization, and I think all of us are in agreement with that. But we can do a lot of harm to the boardwalk just by not paying attention to what's happening up there. This weekend, there were, and this is going to be, I think this is going to be happening more and more. There were television communication trucks up there parked at the top of the horseshoe. And there was a canopy with television cameras and reporters and interviewers. And when I went by on Sunday, there were 2 of them up there. And I can't remember, maybe it's Saturday. Friday, there was just 1. And then on Saturday, there were 2. And you know what those guys were doing? And they're doing it because they had to. They had their generators running. And if you were walking on the boardwalk, that is noise pollution to the nth degree. But they can't, there's no other way they can do it. I asked Sharon, I said, excuse me, I asked city manager if there was anything she could do if we could give them power, because we have power on the boardwalk. And she said that, and correctly so, I just didn't think it through, but their power requirements are such that they need probably a different source of power than we can provide. I don't know whether it's 3-phase or 2-phase or whatever it is to run those cameras and stuff. But those types of things can, if you don't take care of stuff, can just pile up, and the next thing you know, you've got people selling pictures on velvet paintings. You know, as my big. By the way, I think I found the picture of that guy when I was going through Stan's photographs the other day. Anyway, I'll stop there and let's go on to number B, which is consideration of making position statements. And number 1 is maintaining an aesthetic and protect and take care of the protection of views on all or portions of the boardwalk. And then number 2 is commercialization, which we're going to talk about today. And then the last thing on new business that we'll eventually talk about is some of the other items that we've been considering all along and are still valid. Before we talk about commercialization, I'd like to take a moment and review. I'm going to turn this around. Review chapter 95 and chapter 98. Did everybody have a chance to print that out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice that chapter 98, which is boardwalk, doesn't say much about commercialization? And chapter 95 mainly talks about the umbrella concessions and the divisions and where they are. One of them has the north one year, one of them has the south, and then they turn around the next year they take. And the one on the north runs that concession stand out that we talked. I think we've talked. Have we talked about the concession stand out by Deauville? I know you have last year, and I'm not sure whether we have yet or not. But anyway, there are a lot of considerations that are just missing. I mean, I don't see a thing about licensing vendors on the boardwalk or permits, or even what the folks who were here this weekend with their TV cameras and their trucks that broadcast microwaves back to the station. Do those people have to get permits? What's the policy? What policies do we have for allowing those people to come on the boardwalk? Somebody's scheduling them. They don't just come in without notifying people, but I just don't know what the policy is. But
We brought that, oh, sorry.
go.
We brought that issue up a while ago when the Art League wanted to have that event on the boardwalk over Memorial Day. And I think that, I can't remember which one of the committee members, but a lot of us did ask, you know you need to get a permit to have a wedding on the beach. We know that you have to have, or a license permit, whatever you want to call it. But I think the question came up, is there an instrument that city would have to either permit or whatever in an application and things like that. And I don't ever remember an outcome coming from that, meaning, how they would go about what's the procedure and things like that. But I mean, I agree. I think that it is, it could be a big issue with the noise pollution and, putting the tents on there and everything else. And my concern, I mean, I wasn't in Rehoboth this weekend, but I did see, them broadcasting and things like that.
Yeah.
My concern is from a liability issue with the city. If God forbid, if one of those tents wasn't anchored down correctly or weighted down correctly and that thing got airborne and somebody were injured. I mean, they would ideally name the city in any type of lawsuit as well as, whoever's tent it was. But I think ideally it would come down to the city saying, you did nothing if there wasn't a permit issued or something. I would hate to have the city opened up to any type of liability that, truly isn't their fault.
Yeah. I'm sure that's taken care of. I just don't know what the policy is.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. We need to find that should be part of our study. We need to find out those kinds of things. Was anybody out yesterday afternoon? Were the tents still on the boardwalk? The wind was blowing a pretty good clip. They had those canopies
Yeah, there were two Saturday night, Jay, at the end of Wilmington Avenue in front of Gus and Gus.
That's it. That was the one. That was WRDE or WDRE. I can't remember.
Yeah, one was an NBC affiliate. So there was two tents, but from what I watched on TV, they didn't do much of a broadcast from those locations. So I guess they just did a quick broadcast and then took them down.
I was not there yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, it was too windy yesterday.
And that was what Honey brought up. What if the wind blow them over? Or there's all kinds of. I think it was Honey that brought. I had to list. The wind. Do they get blown over? Do they blow out to sea? Will they knock some kid down out on the beach? Or you all have seen an umbrella get loose out there?
Yeah.
And Cats and Lynham carry a liability insurance, and as you read on Chapter 95. But we need to find out what the policy is, because I'm sure there is one, and.
We have asked in previous meetings on a number of occasions, and I think Stan was going to raise a question with Sharon as to what the permit process is, but we've never had a concrete reply to that.
Yeah, Brian, and I didn't find it when I went through the history, when I went through the back minutes and stuff this last weekend. I was a lot of unanswered questions. I've asked for taking a look at the contracts that we sign with Verizon for the antennas on the beach and or on the boardwalk, and I haven't seen that yet. Let's spend a few minutes trying to get lined out on how we're going to do this report, or how we're going to do this investigation, and how we're going to answer the questions that everybody's been asking, even today. I think we should start with. I want you all to chip in anytime you want. Don't wait for me to call on you. We can do this together without anybody stepping on anybody else. It's pretty easy. Stan's done a lot of work on defining a boardwalk. I don't know all I know is that this latest iteration started in, I think, 2008, and we worked on it in 2008 and 2009 and got done with it about 2010. And I think I can find those dates in my notes. I don't know how old the boardwalk is. I don't know when it was first laid down. Does anybody have Has anybody read or come across any information on when the first boardwalk in Rehoboth came to be?
I think it's around the 1890s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
1900.
That would sound about right.
The museum has a,
Yeah.
I just knew it. I mean, Frank's right. It was like late 1890 something.
Yeah.
There were a couple storms. The museum has, I'm sorry, the Rehoboth Beach Museum has an incredible, history and all the stories of the boardwalk.
Yeah, they have that, and they have Paul Lovett's diorama.
Right.
And I think he probably knows better than anyone a lot of this early history. I'd like to find it out.
Mhm.
I know it was pretty well destroyed in 62. And I can remember in 88, I think it was. No, yeah, I think it was 88 when we had a really, really rough, we had two northers come through together and we had some real high wind and we had boardwalk damage then. Because I remember where it came up along some of the streets, along some of the buildings that butt up against the boardwalk. It'd be fun to know. It would be worthwhile to know a little bit about the history. We could have not a chapter. We could have a paragraph or two about the history of the boardwalk and when it assumed its present shape and length and width. It's been this wide since since my wife and I moved here in '96. It's been this wide. So I don't know how long it had been that way. I suspect for a long time. I first came here in '67, and I think it was this width and this length in '67. I'm pretty sure it was, but anyway, it would be fun to know, and I'll bet, as you said, I'll bet that the museum has that information.
Jay,
Go ahead.
this is Steve. If
Yeah.
you look at Paul's dioramas, you actually see the street that ran alongside the boardwalk.
Surf, yeah,
Yeah,
it did, and I don't know that, Steve. That might have defined the width of the boardwalk for a long time.
Yeah,
because it would be I mean, I'm sure they didn't widen it. You know how it's been widened all the way down to what, Laurel, or whenever it gets narrow on the south, and then on the north, probably this width for a long time. I don't know when do you know when the Henlopen was built?
It was like mid-70s, 75, something like that.
Okay.
Because
right.
there was a hotel there that got blown down. The
Yeah.
Henlopen Hotel was there and it got washed away in 62, and that's when they started rebuilding things.
And
I've got that somewhere. Yeah.
You think
Both the Cape Gazette and the History Museum have dates, exact
sure.
dates when everything was done, with the timeline, so we can go through the whole thing. We both got that.
would one of us be interested in getting with Nancy over at the museum and finding out as much as you could about the history of the boardwalk? I mean,
I would love to do that, Jay.
great. That's great. And
I don't know when I'm going to get down again anytime soon, but I would love to.
well, this is going to take a long time.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. But no, I'd be very interested in doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
The museum itself, last time I just looked on their website, it said that they're, because of COVID, they're closed.
Yeah, they are. But Nancy works every day.
Yeah, you may be able just, I'm sure she'll have every piece of information like ready to go. Because I think this is like really gotten to her because it's closed.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun because I remember hearing somewhere that the boardwalk is not actually parallel to the beach. It has something to do with the river, with the Indian River Bridge.
Do you remember?
It's like parallel to that. That's why it's so narrow at the north end and wide at the south end.
true. Do you remember when Tony
That's
Pratt
true.
talked to us? What was it, a year or two ago or 3 years ago? He told us that, and I
That's where I heard.
I can't remember why, but he did. He told.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember. I asked him. I said, "Why is the beach at the south end always wide?" And he said, "Well, that's because the boardwalk's not straight." And he
Yeah.
said,
Okay.
and then he told us how, you know, and how. Anyway, okay.
That's right.
Got
Jay,
that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If all of this is falling under the umbrella of commercialization, I think we need to divide that up into parts. Like on
You know
one,
it.
got
You know it.
the 5G towers, the
You
public
know it.
facilities on public property, and on the other hand, you're talking about kind of special events on the boardwalk or on the bandstand, and then moreover, the thing that is troublesome here, it's special events with merchandise vendors.
Well, you
So
know,
maybe the city
those
should
are
examine.
those are things we have to talk about, and it's more than that. It's you know, there's such a thing as freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. So we just about have to let anybody who wants to have the boardwalk is owned by the city. It's city property, public property. And if we're going to let the greyhounds use the boardwalk, we have to let the German shepherds use the boardwalk. And I'm sure there are policies that have to be made. Oh, you're so right. And you remember last week I said that Commissioner Gossett wants to join in with us on this data gathering. He's the commissioner on the bandstand and convention center committee, and a lot of the things that take place on the bandstand also take place on the boardwalk. So we share a lot of the same liabilities and interests in policy. Both committees do. I think the weddings on the beach happen to be a function of maybe not bandstand convention center. I don't know whether that's their domain or not, but yeah, that's a whole world of interest.
Well, to me, it would seem like you could have a special event, a road race or something like that, where you're not selling anything. And then you could have a special event where you have merchandise vendors, no matter how big or small you're talking. Like Sea Witch would probably be a good example of a lot of merchandise vendors. And you know, something like a charity walk where maybe you're selling T-shirts and that's it would be on the other end of that spectrum.
Yes, that's true. Frank, do you know if Sea Witch has people are allowed to put their vendors up on the boardwalk? I know they have the tents and stuff around the horseshoe, but I don't know whether they were ever up on the boardwalk or not. I just don't know. But the people come on the boardwalk all the time.
Yeah. I don't think that they are, but I could be wrong about that, I'm sure.
But you know, we had the Chamber of Commerce had their Santa Claus house on the boardwalk, and that's what got us into trouble with the Knights of Columbus, because we were allowing one organization to be on the boardwalk, and we weren't allowing, or on public space, and we weren't allowing another organization to be on public space, and that's why we just came out with the new policy, the new policy on holiday decorations that we passed at the last regular meeting. We're
like so many things, maybe the real answer is to have one designated zone and one zone only that can only be occupied by one operator at a time that's booked in advance, whether that zone be a 10-foot by 10-foot or a 20-foot by 30-foot. Perhaps the real answer is to delineate an area where in this area only can you have people exhibiting or selling merchandise.
What we've done on holiday displays for both the boardwalk, the horseshoe, all city-owned property on the holiday display, and I think Sharon has the date set out from the 15th of November to January something, I can't remember, but I have it somewhere. Anyway, the policy going forward, and this includes the boardwalk, so that's why it's of interest to us. The policy going forward is no private displays are allowed on city property. The city will purchase an array of display things. She'll purchase a nativity scene, menorah, and whatever else that is desired. The city will purchase those. We're going to do a holiday tree, which has been donated, but it's on city property and it's a city display, and that's about the only way you can get around the legalities of holiday display, and that's what we're going to do going forward. So there's not going to be anything else on the if we want a Santa house on the boardwalk going forward, the city's going to have to buy one and put it up there, because the chamber will not be able to do that going forward. And that's a new policy, and we all the commissioners agreed on that policy, and we passed on it, and so legally that's what we can do going forward. And I think our study is going to bring up a lot of other issues that we've been talking about that probably needs to be tweaked. We just don't know what those are. But
at least there's a precedent set now by having the commissioners vote on that, and
that's,
I think that's something to go off of now.
That's for sure, and it's a legal document, Jimmy.
Correct. Yeah.
A legal document.
Yeah. So if anyone ever tried to say we were violating anything, it's like, no, here it is.
Yeah, we can defend that, and
Great.
And we may ought to consider policies that are happening on the boardwalk. I don't know how, as I said a minute ago, how we can allow the greyhounds and then deny the German shepherds, or I'm just making that up. But things like those types of policies, because of the Constitution, because of freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. So, which brings us, it would be fun to know what the first commercial establishment on the boardwalk was. I don't know what it was. It was the old pier. There were hotels that were built up against the boardwalk. But as you just said, honey, I think when they rebuilt the Hilton, or when they rebuilt the Henlopen, that
Right.
they tied it to the boardwalk, and that defined that was their abutment on the boardwalk. And I would like to know just how many hotels there are on the boardwalk. Do they all abut the boardwalk? And I think they do. Some of them, some commercial establishments on the boardwalk have no other entrance other than the boardwalk. I don't know whether you can get into Funland from the back or not. I don't think you can. I think it all
There's a side way in.
Is there a side entrance?
Yeah, on Delaware Avenue.
Two of them.
Okay. Well,
There's one on each side of it, on Wilmington and Delaware, and
Brooklyn.
Delaware and yeah.
That's good stuff to know.
Yeah.
I know that when you go, I don't know if the jewelry store has an entrance on the side over there on Laurel, or is it Laurel? Anyway, I don't know whether they have a side entrance or not, but I think their entrances are on the board.
Yeah. You have to take into account, Jay, that every establishment that abuts the boardwalk has at least a 4-foot or 5-foot zone in front of it that establishment owns. So the boardwalk itself per se does not come right up to the building.
No, that's true.
When this boardwalk was built, none of the establishments were allowed to, I believe, connect to the boardwalk. I would have to review that, but I'm almost sure when we built our small decking in front of our building,
yes,
we were not allowed to connect to the boardwalk.
You could just go up to it. You couldn't connect to it. Yeah, I think that's true.
It has to be independent of the boardwalk.
Yeah, and if something should happen, if we get a tidal wave or a tsunami or something, and it rips up the boardwalk, you don't want to be attached to it, you know?
Exactly, exactly. So each and every establishment has access to that establishment without physically going onto the boardwalk.
And I think I read in chapter 98, don't they have to be inspected and everything? I know they do, but I just don't know that says that in there. But anyway, it'd be nice to know, to have a list of how many restaurants, how many shops, how many hotels, who abut the boardwalk and get their business from the boardwalk. Because the jewelry store gets their, I know Ryan's gets all their business from the boardwalk. Now, some of them don't, like the Green Turtle, they'll come in from the side, and the hotels almost all have entrances from the back. But some of these commercial establishments on the boardwalk get their livelihood from the boardwalk, totally. And I remember when this winter, when we were talking about putting a fence down the boardwalk, that there was a lot of interest from the commercial shops about what we were going to do or how that was going to happen. But would anybody like to tackle the name, number, location of commercial establishments that tie to that abut the boardwalk? Would anybody like to take that on?
I'd be happy to do that for you.
Okay, that'd be great, Brian. I'm also going to ask you, Brian, to be a watchdog for wireless, but I don't think we know how many buildings, how many commercial establishments sit against the boardwalk. We might know, I suppose that.
It should be easy enough to go to the city permit office and just pull and ask them to give us a list of commercial zone properties on the boardwalk.
They may not have that. They may not, they have a list of all the commercial licenses that are issued. They may not have them segregated by whether they're on the boardwalk or not. I'm not even sure if they keep, I'm sure they keep addresses of the establishment.
Well, I might be able to answer that. I have a store on the boardwalk next to Twin Kite, and it's 401 North Boardwalk. But the other part of that address is 1 Virginia Avenue. So, as far as the mailing address, physical address, it's a situation where the post office says one thing, the city says another thing, and Google Maps might say a third thing. Another situation might be like Gus and Gus. It's not positive, but I think Gus and Gus might be 1 Wilmington Avenue.
Yeah.
But their city business license, they say, 101 South Boardwalk. So I'm not sure, but it might be easier just to take a physical walk up and down the boardwalk. Unless this thing has to be absolutely 100% precise. I think you could take a walking tour of the boardwalk in about a half an hour and pretty much nail down, what you're talking.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying no. I'd be happy to do that. I need the exercise.
And aren't we concerned about access? How you access the businesses, whether you do it from the boardwalk or a side street?
That would be really good to know, because you'd like to be able to say we have 28 commercial establishments on the boardwalk that can only be accessed by the boardwalk, and we have 32 that can be accessed by abutting streets. That'd be good information to know, and I'm sure you could probably check those boxes off, Brian, when you look at the establishments.
Yeah. But as I said before, it's important to indicate that every establishment on the boardwalk, every commercial establishment, and even those units zoned residential, they have their own access separate to the boardwalk. Yeah. So an establishment may get its clientele from the boardwalk,
Yeah.
It may not necessarily have the only access via the boardwalk, because each of the 4 4-foot section in front of each establishment comes to the end of a road, either side of that establishment. So you can come off that road onto the private area in front of the building.
Yeah.
And that is an actual boardwalk access.
Yep. And I suspect that almost all of them have back doors that employees can come and go. But as you just said, their clientele comes from the boardwalk. And that's the epitome of commercialization. I mean, that's the definition. They get their livelihood from us. Yeah, it'd be good to know how many residences there are. Now, once you get south of those condominiums that they built them where the old miniature golf arcade used to be, and I can't remember.
On Laurel Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty much
Mrs. Ewing, the lady that owns the bungalow behind us, her husband owned the golf, the mini golf there, the putt-putt.
Yeah. That's residential from there on south, pretty much.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We are starting to see is the last commercial / residential property on the boardwalk south.
Yeah. Do you have the numbers when the Star of the Sea was built? I think it was what, 73, 74?
It was built in 72 and ratified in 73 as a condominium.
Okay. It'd be fun to know that. How many people, how many residences are there? And the same with One Virginia, the same for everybody. It'd be nice to know how big those are and how many residential units are included in those condominiums and hotels and everything. It'd just be great information to have. The same with restaurants. It'd be fun to know just how many we have, just how many condos versus hotels that we have. That's just great information. And which brings us to events. Who wants to tackle the events? That's probably, I know that Allison was wanting to get involved with that. I don't know whether she'll want to have somebody help her or not. I might help her.
I'll help her. You mean dealing with the events that affect the boardwalk?
Yeah, the events on the
list. I'm happy to help her with that.
Okay. Let me write that down. You'll help Allison.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll have to have a conference before that happens, because
that's fine.
I know that Patrick Gossett, Commissioner Gossett, wants to know about events that are combined and events on the bandstand. And I think that all comes out of the same office. I think that all comes out of Chris Johnson's office.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to.
Say again.
I'm happy to help. I mean that. Yeah, definitely. I'll
Great.
help in any with whoever needs help with that.
When we talk about events on the boardwalk, one thing to consider, we haven't really gotten into it, is Ocean City, Maryland has had a problem with street performers on the boardwalk and religious groups and political groups.
Yes, they have.
And now then, with the nationwide attention we're getting on our town, we could find a lot more people wanting to express their views and wanting to do it in public places within our city. And I don't know if we I don't know if the commissioners or the city manager have even thought about how they're going to deal with the onslaught that could occur with our public, display.
I don't know, Gary. I just talked to Stan yesterday about that very thing, and I asked him how things were going. He said, I'm getting interviewed every time I turn around. He didn't say that, but essentially that's what he said. And we are going to be the epicenter.
Yes, we could.
On a lot of stuff. And And I'm not sure how we decide that. I think in the past, Chief Banks has just handled this stuff one-on-one. If we heard that there was a group of, I don't know, anti-gun protesters coming to town, he just sort of handled that as best he could, one-on-one, and got help if he could get it or needed it. I don't know whether we have a policy on that. I just don't know how that happens. If someone wants to have a demonstration, I think they call city manager's office or the information office, and I don't know whether they have. I just don't know how they do that. I don't know what kind of information they get, but I know that is going to be a big deal going forward.
And I think Ocean City, Maryland has an awful lot of experience with this, because they've lost several cases in court, and a lot of these law firms are more than willing to take up the battle at pro bono to prove out freedom of speech and First Amendment rights and things like that. And so they have made compromises and worked with these people because they can't prohibit them, is my understanding. So, I mean, we can learn a lot by having, and I'm sure maybe Sharon and the city government has already had conversations with them.
Dan and I have had conversations with Ocean City about the very things you're talking about. And I can't remember if that was talked about in the meeting or not, but one of the real problems that Ocean City's having is with the homeless, and they were living around the restrooms. And did we talk about that at a forum when Stan gave his report? I can't remember, but that's a big deal. And
yes,
what happens is they close their restrooms at midnight and open them up again at 6. And we talked to the people at Ocean City, Maryland. I'm talking Maryland, not Ocean. We talked about the people, and they said, you don't want to know what happens between midnight and 6. And they said, there's nothing we can do about it. We have to accommodate those people. I don't know how Chief Banks has been handling that in the past, but he's handling it.
You know, we've had that trouble over at Stokely Park, and they go and use the showers on the backs of houses along the Silver Lake there around Stokely Park.
Yep.
And I know from our association that Chief Banks from what we've talked with him, he tries to get them to go to one of the shelters, and they'll even give them a ride to one of the shelters. And that's how he's been helping. And it's been manageable. It hasn't been out of control, but it's been a problem. It's been an issue.
It sure has. In the early 2000s, 2004, 2003, something like that, when we were staying the winter in Texas and the summer here, some guy moved into our house and lived in our house for a week or so while we were in Texas. It was not.
I heard a lot of that. I've been here since '96 myself.
Anyway, retail businesses on the boardwalks, Brian, and you're gonna get a list of hotels and condos and the restaurants, if nothing more than just to be able to tell people that read our report that the scope, the size and scope of commercialization on the boardwalk. And Jimmy, you're going to work with Allison on the events.
Yep.
And it'd be fun to know, and you'll do it, I'm sure, races and marches and demos.
Yep.
Whether it's private or public. And I don't know what the Art League is. I suspect they're a nonprofit, maybe a 501c3. I think we might have talked about that, or else you might have talked about that in February. But so we'll get that information. And the next thing that I'd like to think about how we're going to handle is, and I just touched on it a minute ago, is the wireless communication situation. I know that's going to get nothing but bigger and bigger as time goes on. And I think we should have a separate issue, a separate chapter, separate paragraph in our report on on what we think ought to happen on that. I have asked, my problem, Brian, is I'm not an expert on those antennas. I just don't know. So I want to help you, but I'm not able, there's a lot of stuff that I just don't know about that. But we need to see a copy of the contracts and see what kind of, and Allison put me onto a city meeting in Newark, and they were doing the very thing that I'm talking about right now. They were discussing a contract that they're writing with, in their particular case, it was Singular, but the contract that they had with Singular was a great contract. It was drawn up by a big law firm on the Jersey coast, or in New Jersey, who is a huge law firm. So it was a very interesting contract, and it seemed like they covered a lot more things than we did even in our ordinance, in our communications ordinance.
But the Planning Commission in their very last meeting had about a 45-minute discussion in which Mike Strange led, who's an engineer and all kinds of things, and it was very detailed. But what I got out of it is I think the city would be best served by having a law firm that is very specialized in this kind of contract to review any action that a cell company wants to take, putting up towers, because I think it's way over our head. The discussion they had in the Planning Commission was very technical, and there's not a lot of options that the city has under the federal law, but they do have a couple. But you have to have people who are very skilled at carrying out these things, and I think that there, the environmental committee is also working on this, and I think the only way we really attack this in a responsible way is to have a law firm representing the city and spend a little bit of money reviewing these contracts and holding the cell providers to the agreement.
Well, we have done that, Gary. This Cohen Law Group are the consultants that we have hired, and they wrote the communications ordinance that we have now. I personally, you want to make sure it stays up to date and everything. So that's something that needs to be continuously reviewed. And yeah, I heard that. By the way, if anybody, I have a copy of the letter that Mike Strange wrote to the Planning Commission. If anybody would like me to send that to them, just drop me a line and I will forward it to you in return mail. I would imagine that Brian has a copy, Gary. Brian probably has a copy of that.
No, I don't, Jay. No.
Okay, I'll send it to everybody.
Okay.
That would be good. That would be good. He did a very quick, very complete analysis. And another meeting I watched, I don't know, maybe it was a commissioners meeting. Another gentleman was doing pictures and videos of where the poles could be and everything.
Yeah, was that Dr. Trejos that had
Dr. Trejos,
antennas and stuff?
Yes.
That's a great presentation.
Great presentation.
And I think he was having to hurry up too fast to really make a great presentation. Yeah. Once we get back in the city hall, I would love to have him come and give that presentation to us, because it is an eye opener. And Brian, did you see that presentation?
I did not, no.
I think he had the picture of all the antennas on top of the Henlopen Hotel, and he triangulated them. He had pictures of those.
Yes.
With the star of the sea, and then he had pictures of those antennas that are up near the highway that we have, and he showed how those are triangulated, and he showed the little tiny cells that are going to be 5G. They're just little dinky cells, like, I don't know, 100 yards across.
Right, but when you say cells, aren't you talking about their coverage?
That's true.
How close you have to be to that cell tower to actually get any use out of it.
That's true. If your cell is
very small.
It's very small. If your cell's 150 yards wide, that means you have to have your antenna 75 yards from the
Yeah, yeah. That's why they're going to have so many of them.
That's true. And I think that that'll give us a clue to what we got coming. It really will. And so anyway,
well, one thing that might be good is there's multiple committees in the city talking about this issue. It might be, and there's some very educated people. It might be good, instead of every committee taking it on, if somehow we could pull the committees together and have a 5G meeting with everybody.
I think you're exactly right. And it would be good to it'd be good to have a part in that, because our antennas are going to be just the data is going to be phenomenal.
From the look of the map you put out, the boardwalk's going to get hit first. I mean, they're coming to the boardwalk first before anything else.
And that's
the Star of the Sea. It's going to be right there at the Star of the Sea,
right in front of all of us. And as you know, one of our primary objectives is to protect our G-bed. And I think that Kevin's doing a good job, as I said in the last meeting. I just don't know how that's progressing. But Brian, I can also send you a download of the findings of the Ninth Circuit if you want it. I have that.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
And anybody else that would like from me.
I would like that.
To me.
I would like that, Jay.
Let me send it to everybody and
send it to everybody.
Send it to everybody. Yeah.
Anybody that wants to print it out can. It's like 100 pages, so you got.
yeah.
But
they get paid by the page.
Yeah, I'll send.
Buy it by the page.
When I do that, I'll also send out Mike Strange's letter to the PC.
Great.
That'd be great.
To really get an idea of what that amounts to, I would encourage everybody to tune in and listen to the video of the last planning commission, because they talked a lot.
It was a lengthy discussion.
Yeah.
And more and more people are talking about this. I think this 5G, especially when they start rolling it out big time, more and more people talk about subject.
Yep. That's exactly right. We've talked about the introductory. We talked a little bit about chapter 95 and chapter 98. That's the beach and the boardwalk. I'd like to have you keep it in mind so that when we get to decide whether we want to amend any ordinances or make any suggestions to the commissioners, we can do that. And as far as you all have Christmas plans. What are the next meeting? I think in December would be the first meeting after ours will be Monday after the workshop. And I don't have my calendar in front of me right now. It's on my computer that I can't access. But when is that second Monday?
The 14th?
The 14th.
Okay.
The 14th.
Are y'all is anybody going out of town? Is that a bad time for a meeting? Would you like to just take December off and pick back up in January? One of the things, go ahead, Gary.
I'll be around, but it's up to the group. I mean, I can go either way.
Okay, I can go either
I'm
way.
around.
Yeah, I'm here.
We are around. If there's anything going to be happening about 5G that we would have any input on, I think we should have a meeting. But if not, we can hold it off.
I don't think we're going to have a lot of input on it. I think it's pretty much in the hands of Sharon and Kevin right now.
Wow.
And it's difficult. It's difficult for them.
Oh, you know,
Yeah.
It's no win. I mean, when you read the circuit, when you read the Ninth Circuit, you'll know it's a no-win deal.
Yeah,
we can do aesthetics, or we can do a little bit of other things, but mostly aesthetics.
Good, yeah. So this is the court ruling, Jay, that's mandated municipalities have no say in who or which communication company can come in.
That's
The,
correct.
the city can only decide how it's presented within the city.
That's correct.
Basically,
And-
yeah.
And we have to be the same to everybody. I mean, this could get to be a rat's nest. And
No,
Wait till the other companies start putting their towers up.
Yeah, I believe Bethany was having a huge meeting this week with regards to 5G.
about the best we can do is make them use existing poles if they will. Now, can we make AT&T use Verizon's pole that they're building on the boardwalk? We might be able to do that. I just don't know yet, but we might be able to do that. I think Kevin is negotiating with them so that they can accommodate more than just one company. They can put radio boxes inside those antennas.
And right, an example to that is if you look on the Rehoboth Avenue where they've redone the lamppost and included the 5G tower, it looks pretty good actually.
Yeah.
But
Better than you'd think.
it
So
does.
let me have a show of hands of anybody that cannot make the 14th of December or have people coming and are going to be out of town, something like that. How many people would rather not schedule that 14th and wait until January? Nobody. So we
Nobody.
Can you make it, Steve?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's have 10:30 on the 14th, and we'll have a beach and boardwalk committee meeting, and we'll hear from everybody how you've been doing, and if we've been making any headway, and we'll also know a little bit more about 5G then, if we want to do that. Let's have committee member comments. Anybody want to make parting comment?
I just wanted to make a comment, and that is that as we move forward with figuring out, I think that advising the commissioners on how to update Chapter 95 and 98 is a great thing for the committee to do. But as we start looking at being a policy advisor to the commissioners and not micromanagers of the city manager and city staff, I think it's important to look at what activities are already taking place on the boardwalk and the density at which these activities that are already ongoing are before we start considering putting in more activities on the boardwalk. And what I'm referring to is I rode my bike a lot this summer down on the boardwalk, and it gets quite busy and quite crowded. And that's even in the mornings when you're just allowed to ride bikes until 10 a.m. So if we wanted to look at activities, we should look at activities at times that don't interfere with the primary purpose, in my opinion, of people coming to Rehoboth, and that's to enjoy the beach. So
yeah,
I just think we need to look at what is it that we really have to offer somebody to do, and not displace the people that are already here and paying for hotel rooms and whatnot to enjoy the boardwalk and to enjoy the beach.
And I suspect that they're already doing that. I think that when Jimmy and Allison talked to the folks in City Hall, I'm sure I have a feeling that's what they're going to find out. I think they work a lot to try to keep scheduling in the right dates. I think they work hard to do that. And because we don't have that many, right now, we don't have that many conflicts. I remember one 4th of July when they had a race on the boardwalk, and it was just horrible.
Yes.
The trash trucks were late picking things up that day. So you had all these runners, you had residents were coming out of hotels, trash trucks were on the boardwalk, and it was just chaos. And I suspect that the people who are scheduling it are probably doing their best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Jay, I might check one thing. As you formulate your ideas and your opinions, try to keep in mind those pictures that you and Stan were so good about getting us of some of the Jersey beaches, the good, the bad, the ugly. Some of that commercialization is just gross. There's no other word for it. And I think that's the big thing to keep in mind when you're looking at over commercialization of the boardwalk. We don't want to be like them.
Frank,
It's-
I was looking at those photos last night and they are just grim. As I said earlier, I think I saw the guy that was selling the damn velvet paintings. There was a whole row of vendors on, I can't remember where it was, Asbury Park. I can't remember. But yeah, those photographs are worth more than 1,000 words. And I'm sure Stan still has them and I have a bunch too. So I think we're good to go on that.
I totally agree with Frank, and the signage, when we start having requests for signage on the boardwalk and everything,
Yep.
we really need to look at those pictures and think about where we want to go with that, because that could get completely out of control pretty fast.
And we want to consider signage. We really do. We have
We
a
really do.
now
Yeah.
that applies to commercial establishments, and it's a pretty good one. But you hate to think of those people moving out of there, putting sandwich boards on the boardwalk, and those photographs that stand ahead of the garbage cans looking like Pepsi bottles and stuff. They're just, I mean, it's just, you just don't want to go there. And I don't think we're going to go there, but I think the commissioners want to be aware of the cautions that we come across. Right now, we're just collecting a lot of data, and I think we can go ahead and do it and really make a positive contribution. Any more citizen comments?
One last thing for me.
Go.
Don't forget, I really think we need to talk about beach replenishment, because other towns up and down the coastline are developing funds for their beach replenishment to assist. Because I think, and from one of our meetings when Denrec spoke, they were going to reduce the funds and extend the time that they replenish the beach, and we as a city could be asked to contribute. And I really think that we need to start thinking about when is the next scheduled beach replenishment? What is it going to look like? And are we going to need to contribute to that before we just get hit upside the head?
Yep.
With the cost.
Yep. And that's something we ought to talk about when I talk to the on budget time. Steve, are you okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the point that I was on the boardwalk, I believe it was Saturday. I did see a guy playing guitar up there, which is, I guess, permissible, but he did have his guitar case out with, some dollar bills in it, which is, I guess, against the code.
Yeah, I think so. We probably should have called the police department and asked for guidance on that. But yeah, if that happens again, give me a shout and I'll get Chief Banks on it and find out.
Okay.
Oh, you bet I will.
That's how it started down in Ocean City.
Yep. Well, if I hear no more citizen comments, we've set the meeting date. We're going to meet on the 14th. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Well, with my apologies to Max, we're 7 minutes over and I didn't want that to happen, but meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks,